and my grandma was already there, and she was just on the ground, just crying, and that broke me. Just make sure you press record.
Well, that's already recorded. That's literally the first thing you've said on the podcast. All right. We are back in the 120 Grit studio today we usually have special guests in here, but you are a very special guest today. We've got Ben Brooksby, bit of a mouthful.
Yeah.
Normally he's bearing a bit of flesh, but he's fully clothed today, thank God. A farmer, grain and livestock farmer from St Helens in Victoria.
Yep, that's right. Yep.
And founder of the incredible movement, The Naked Farmer. He's been getting farmers in rural and remote communities to take their kit off for a little while now, and we're about to find out about it all. Mate, welcome to the studio.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's an absolute honour.
Mate, it's great to have you in here. Have a bit of a yarn about your journey, the story, and what you've been up to. It's going to be fantastic.
Why do you have clothes on? I feel like...
Why are you clothed at the moment?
Do you want me to take them off?
Are we not special enough, or, you know?
We'll leave that for the end.
We will. So, I suppose for me, I remember when you were on the project, must have been about 18 months ago? A year ago?
Yeah, just over a year ago.
So a year ago? Yeah.
No, it was June, July, I reckon.
And it was unbelievable. I just remember I was like, wow, this thing's epic. And you had something like 60,000, 70,000 people on Instagram, and now you've got 100,000. Mate, tell us about The Naked Farmer.
Yeah, so The Naked Farmer, what it is, basically, it's a social media-based platform that's used to be a voice for farmers. I'll go into like how it all started and that type of thing, but so basically what we do, we post a photo each day, generally between 6 and 8, depending where you are, of course. But each day we post a photo about, sometimes we do like an inspirational quote or something a bit funny just to make people laugh. And sometimes we actually share their mental health story if they feel comfortable doing so. And it's pretty incredible to see the post that we actually put out there, and I'm honoured to, tell their story on their behalf. So basically, in a nutshell, that's what The Naked Farmer is. We post photos each day. We also have a lot of other projects too, like our calendars, and we do tours and all that type of thing. But I can
talk for hours.
I
love it.
I don't know how much.
Well, there's so much synergy, because I remember when I saw it, I was like, shit, that's such a simple idea. That's brilliant, because, people, that vulnerability side, which you're working on with people getting their kit off anyway, they're obviously enjoying doing it and loving sending those photos through, and then getting the message. It's an amazing thing.
It's a little bit risque, isn't it? People have. I like the way people play with the way they hide their bits. I think people must have a lot of fun. No, when they're naked, when they hide their bits, you know what I mean? Like, I think they must have a lot of fun figuring out how they're going to do that.
It's pretty cool when you're scrolling through the Instagram or Facebook or something, and you see everyone's ideas, and there's some pretty cool photos on there. So creative.
For sure, but I just see there's, I've seen pictures on horses, and you've got, people on machinery and all sorts of stuff, and they're naked when they get up there. There's obviously someone taking the photo, and there's no way they can protect themselves the whole way up. I reckon there must have been a few slip-ups when they're kind of getting in position or whatnot.
Yeah, you probably should come to a few photo shoots. It's interesting.
I'd like to see some of the behind-the-scenes stuff, to be honest.
Yeah, well, no comment.
One day.
Yeah.
Mate, well, let's get a bit more of your personal background. So are you born and bred in outside Horsham there, is it?
Yeah, I am. So on the property that I'm at, which is at St Helens Plains, it's me and my dad on the property at the moment. I live on the property by myself. Dad lives in town, but both of us work the farm, so it's just the two of us. We've got under 5,000 acres, and we do mainly cropping.
Yep.
So we grow, you know, wheat, barley, lentils, chickpeas, fava beans, canola, vetch hay, and then we have sheep as well. So we've got about 1,000 breeder ewes, and yeah, so it's just me and Dad managing all that. So it's a bit of a handful, and now that I'm spending more time on the naked farmer and that type of thing, it's getting harder and harder to juggle. But yeah, Dad's an absolute true legend, and he's handling it all. I actually lost my grandpa in January this year, and yeah, he was a absolute workhorse, as you could imagine, as an older generation, and he basically worked up till you know December the year before, and yeah, so yeah, it's just me and Dad now, and just on the farm.
Mate, awesome. Yeah. How old is your grandfather?
He was 78. He had cancer.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. To push through that and to
Still be working through it.
Oh, he would come to work, he'll be working, and then he'll have to have a sit down for 10 minutes, and he'll get up and do something else. Like, he just did not stop. Like, he had chemo and radiation and everything, but you know, he'll have a bit of a spew and keep going. Like,
that's one of the most important things, though, isn't it? Like, you know, people don't want their lives to change, even though they might have such, you know, awful health
and he
situations.
had a huge belief that, you know, if he stopped, he was going to die.
Yeah.
So he just kept pushing through.
Understandable.
And he just wanted to get the farm set up. Like, he was, you know, fixing all the fences to make sure that if something happened and he was in hospital for a week or whatever, getting his radiation, that everything was okay.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's the man that he was, just thinking about everyone else but himself, pretty much. And yeah, if I could be half the man that he is, I'd be truly happy.
So how did you get to here? So tell us about your sort of growing up, your childhood. Like, you know, you obviously always been from the land.
Yeah. So so grew up on the farm. Parents, mum and dad, and I have a brother and a sister. They're both older than me. And at the age of about 5 or 6, my parents split up. And that was a very challenging time during that period, and we, you know, trying to sort out custody and all that stuff that you got to do. And as a 5-year-old, you'd sort of have no idea what's going on. And I remember having to go down to Melbourne to go to the big court thing for the final, you know, custody and all that stuff with us kids. And I remember walking into this room, and us kids had our own solicitor. And Tina, my sister, she said to me, just copy everything I say, because I had no idea what was happening. And got in there, he introduced himself and whatever, and then he goes, righto, so what parent do you like better, your mum or your dad? And I sat there and I was just like, oh, fuck, bloody hell, like, what do I say? And then my brother's like, oh, dad. And my sister's like, mum and dad, I love them both equally. And so I said that too, because that's what I was meant to say. And that was the end of the custody. Like, that's what actually got decided. And so my brother was with my dad the whole time. And during the week I was with my mum, and then weekends I was with my dad, sort of thing. So growing up, that was how it worked. And that was challenging, you know, as pretty common thing now to have split parents.
It's very common. I mean, I've been through a similar situation, but it's not something that you want to... child at that age, that is, you can't ever be asking someone who they like better. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's just not a position that you want to be
bloody traumatic experience for a child to go through.
Yeah, the whole process, so confusing, and getting, I remember getting taken from school and put into this car with this mysterious person that I've never seen this lady in my life, and ended up getting taken to this house, and then my mum was there, and mum basically kidnapped me from school because, it was just like, it was crazy, absolutely crazy. But
it's a bit hectic what goes on when, you know, in that family dynamic, when, you know, when you go through a divorce, there's such, you know, really heightened emotions, and, you know,
absolutely.
both your parents are in situations they don't want to be in, and it's just that it ends up kids being stuck in the middle of it, and not by choice, but bugger me, it that leaves some marks, you know, in a child's mind, right?
Oh, 100%. And I think that's what sort of eventuated into my anxiety and a bit of depression and that type of thing, growing up and not wanting to be alone or in a room or anything. And like, I never did a school sports, swimming sports, never did school camps, Hated going to shops and that type of thing. And yeah, like hated going to like Melbourne show, and I remember going to a Melbourne show and I was shitting myself the whole time. And yeah, would never want to go to like concerts or never wanted to do things that is meant to be fun. I just didn't think it was fun. And as embarrassing as it is to say, I couldn't even, you know, shower or bath myself, like be alone in the room till I was about 10. And yeah, so got to high school, same story, never did a school sports or anything like that, and got to year 12, got my license, and one evening I was driving around town with a couple of mates, and you know, as you do when you get your license, just follow each other around, and then
Manies.
Yeah, 100%. And then yeah, got down the main street, and I started getting like, couldn't breathe properly, and then started sweating, and started shaking, and I had to stop, and pulled over, and my mates thought I was just joking around because I was the joker of the group, and everyone's, you know, what's been up to now. But yeah, so after about 10 minutes, I sort of come good. I was sitting there shaking, and I was fully conscious the whole time and everything. So it wasn't anything too serious, like serious enough. But I thought, shit, I'm having a stroke or a heart attack or something. Like something's not right. And so after 5-10 minutes, gathered myself and I said, righto, I got to go home, and home is half an hour from the town. So I started driving home by myself, and then got about halfway and I could feel it happening again. I'm like, oh no, it is a stroke or a heart attack. You know how it happens a couple of times, and like you can have sort of episodes, and yeah, I had to pull over again, happened again, and then I gathered myself up, started driving home again, and got to the driveway and felt it happening once again. I was like, I just need to get home. Dad was living at home at this stage. Flew down the driveway. I remember stalling the car in the driveway, luckily that it was a manual, and ran inside, ran down the hallway, screaming out to Dad, opened up his bedroom door, and he just launched out of bed and like bear hugged me. He thought I had an accident or something, and he's just like, why are you a ball of sweat? What's going on? Yeah. And I'm like, I don't know, I just don't feel good. Something's not right. This and this is happening. And he goes, you're having a heart attack. We've got to get into town. Something's not right. No, like seriously, I was beside myself.
Yeah.
And so that half an hour trip into town took 10 minutes with Dad driving, and got in there. They hooked me up to all these machines.
So you're still going through this sort of episode while that was all happening? Like you didn't...
I had the 3. And then...
On the drive into town with your old man, you were still like, holy shit, it's all...
I didn't have a full-on attack, but it was...
Still prominent.
Still
like you
prominent,
yeah.
I was still sweating and everything, but once I got to the hospital, I was half fine, and then they did all these tests and couldn't figure out what was going on. Got to about, 5 o'clock in the morning. They said, righto, we can't, don't know, like basically go home, you're fine. And then because I had my license and everything, I'd be doing the grocery shopping and that, because Dad could never get to town because work was too hectic. And one thing that I couldn't do was ever going to a supermarket or a shop or anything, but I didn't want to let Dad down, so I'd have my, grocery list to a T, have aisle by aisle, and get in and out as quick as I could. I could do a full trolley grocery shop in like 5 minutes. I was pretty talented. It's a skill. And then, so once I'd get the trolley full, go out and go through that checkout, and I would just freak, and I could feel it happening again. And it happened 5 times in a row, but I'd get the trolley, go down the dog food aisle, ditch the trolley and just run out and go home. And I would have to call Grandma up and be like, oh, I'm a bit busy. Can you get some groceries for me? So Grandma would get what I needed, and I was sort of safe. But Grandma cottoned on after a while, and she sat me down and she's like, oh, what's going on with, like, how come you can't do the grocery shopping? And I said, oh, I just don't like people, don't like, dealing with all that type of thing. And what happens if my card doesn't work, and, all those sort of thoughts. And she goes, that happens to me too, happens to your aunties. It's normal. I think you're having, a bit of anxiety. And she's like, let's go talk to our family doctor. So we went and caught up with her, sat down with her, and she basically said, yep, anxiety attacks, it's normal. We'll, do a bit of a plan of how we're going to, help you with this situation. And from there, we sort of started working towards something, but it I never really got a hold on it. She wanted me to go on medication, but it was something that I would do that, but if it was at a certain point where I tried everything else, and then I got to that point. So I would try anything. Like, I had a rock in my pocket for a while, and I would literally, if I felt anxious, just rub this rock. Didn't work for me. But that's one thing. Another thing, we did like a hierarchy with the doctor. So we did like a 10-to-1. So you had to work your way up. So number 10 was like make a phone call. And number 9 was something else. And number 5 was, do a small grocery shop or whatever. Number 1 was a full grocery shop. And I never really got a hold of that until later on. But
yeah. Did you know what anxiety was before all that sort of happened?
idea. No. Yeah. I remember, I've never spoke about that before, but I remember sitting in health class and my teacher writing down, all the mental health, and we were learning about mental health. And he wrote anxiety on the board, no idea what it was. And he didn't really explain it that well. And at lunchtime, I asked one of my friends, and she's like, "Oh, I have anxiety." And I'm like, "What is it? Can you explain it to me?" And she tried to explain it to me, but I still didn't understand it. Like, I still had no idea. I just thought you got the shakes or something. Like, I didn't know that it was. I had no idea. So no, I had no idea until
Well, the best thing that Dan and I've heard was Nick Sutherland, who we work with a bit, like his easiest way of describing is like depression's shit that's happened to you in the past, and anxiety shit that's gonna happen. You're worried about happening in the future. And it's just like but you aren't taught this stuff.
No,
you know what I mean?
No, and that's the thing. Like, we were in that health class, and he was teaching us, but it didn't go in.
Didn't come through, yeah.
And the way that he was doing it probably wasn't great either. Like,
I think
I won't mention names.
that's a pretty good example of how, it's all well and good to talk to people, or you can explain to people what, anxiety is or what depression is, or, it's like, trying to explain to someone what physical fitness is, but there's so many different forms of it. And it's not until you experience it for yourself
100%
that you can really understand it. And the fact that what causes me anxiety is completely different to what causes you anxiety.
Yep.
And as irrational as it might seem when you think about it with a logical mind, it doesn't make it any easier.
Yeah.
It doesn't make it any easier. And to the point where it's coming out physically, like sweating and shaking and all that sort of stuff, that's a physical response to, an emotional situation, I suppose. And it's scary stuff. Like, it must have, been really frightening for you.
Oh yeah, it was.
Not knowing.
And, like, the way that you just explained that was when I went I did my mainland Australia tour, and I, went around Australia and caught up with farmers and did our photo shoots and that. I got up to the Pilbara to a station called Kaliita Station and caught up with Camille Camp. She's an absolute legend. And she spoke about her mental health struggles, and it was anorexia. And I know what it is, and I thought I sort of understood it a little bit, but the way that she explained it was incorrect. Like, it really hit home for me, but I still can't fully understand it until you experience it yourself. So I totally agree with that. You don't understand anxiety or depression until you're in that sort of situation fully. You can, to a degree.
Yeah, you can have an understanding of it, I suppose, but until you've been there, then you know exactly, how that feels.
And I think that's also why a lot of people, probably that situation for you, like, that's, not severe. Maybe it is a bit severe.
Well, it sounds like it was completely controlling, you as a person.
Oh,
like, it was, And I'm interested with the doctor you were speaking to, like, she was wanting to put you on medication and stuff like that. But was there any time where it was sort of like trying to debunk it and be like, well, what's actually causing this?
Not per se, no. No. The main thing was that hierarchy that we worked on, but that wasn't going back to the roots of what actually caused it or anything like that. So there was no discussion like that, and I never went and saw an actual counsellor or anything about it.
So did you work out to actually find out what that root cause was? Like, do you know what that root cause was?
Well, I asked my mum about it, and she mentioned about when I was about 5, and my brother Chris, he had a big back operation because his spine isn't straight, so he got bolts and stuff put in there, and and this is before my parents split up, but it was so my mum and dad had to stay in Melbourne with him, and I had to go home with my grandma and grandpa, and I still remember this so clearly of mum having to hand me over to grandma to come home, and I remember screaming that hospital down, like, no tomorrow. I didn't want to leave mum and dad, and grandma ripped me off mum and got into the elevator, and I just remember those elevator doors closing, and I would have been fine after that, and I can't remember after that, for that matter, but yeah.
But a moment like that, it's sort of etched in your memory.
Yeah, 100%.
Being separated from your folks in what is already a traumatic situation. Hospital is a big sort of scary place for a young kid, and you're
still scary now.
And seeing that and being separated at that time. I mean, there's so many things for a kid. They're like the unknown, the fear. Like, it's just and at that time, all you want is your parents, and that is
they're your whole world.
Yeah,
and
but I was going with my grandparents. Like, I absolutely idolise them, and I'm fine with them. Like, they used to look after me all the time.
Still, there's something in you that tells you that shit. This is my brother. These are my parents. Something's going down here, even though I don't fully understand it, and whatever it is in you, it's like I need to be here with these are my main people right here, and I need them. Like, that's sort of. I'm interested to know at what point in time the switch happened, because now you're on stage talking in front of and that's incredible.
Changed. Yeah,
and I mean, just to piggyback on that as well, a lot of people say, or South always says, like, adulthood is like just unfucking what happened to you when you were a kid, like through your childhood. And I think that's super common.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I can certainly relate to that myself, and I'm sure, just hearing that story from you, that's probably what, you've spent a lot of your time doing, like figuring out that anxiety, where it's all come from. Yeah. So where did that switch kind of happen?
Yeah. So this happened it was only about 3 years ago. I was about 21 or 22 at the time. It was just me and my brother living at home on our family farm. We're all at the footy one day, and I got a phone call from one of my neighbours, Rosalind, and she called me up and she goes, "Oh, Ben, are you burning some rubbish down there or something?" And I'm like, "No rubbish." And she goes, "Oh, there's a bit of black smoke down there." I said, "Oh," and straight away I thought, hay shed, like. And so I'm like, "Can you go down and check, call the fire brigade if it is?" And I'm on my way straight away. Got in the car, started going, and then she called back and she said, "Ben, I don't want to be the one to tell you this, but it's your house. It's your family home, and it is gone. Just take your time coming home. No rush to come home. I've called the fire brigade. Everything's looked after. Just get here as when you can." And that 45-minute drive home from Stool to home, and I did it in about half an hour or 20 minutes or something. But that was the things going through your head coming home. Like, is it the whole house? Is it, what's left? Like, let's get there. And in my head, I had, we've got our own fire truck that we use on the farm. I'm like, right, I need to get this straight to the house and do this, and got garden hoses here. But got there, and I remember driving down our road, and we live on a plain, so there's no trees around, and you could see the lights from ages away of all the fire trucks there. And I got to the end of my driveway and looked down, and you could see all the flames, and there was cars everywhere. The whole community was there just helping out, doing what they could, and there's about 40 people standing in front of the house just looking at it, and And I remember, I was looking at the people first before I even looked at the house for some reason, and saw them, and then looked at the house as I was driving past it, and it just hit you, and it's just like, shit, like that's everything. That's our farm. That's our history. That's everything. So I parked the ute and ran over, and my grandma was already there, and she was just on the ground, just crying, and that broke me. That point when I saw her, just, she raised my dad and my aunties there, and then dad raised us kids there, and it's just all that history gone. But
that's I mean, that's certainly that fucking story that gives me tingles. I can't imagine what that must be like. I mean, for starters, to see all those people there who were there, like sense of community. I mean, that's awesome. But I guess to see it all gone, that must have just been the most sinking feeling that you've ever experienced in your life.
That was rock bottom.
Yeah, wow.
100%. That everything. Yeah, everything was gone, and all I had was, I wasn't even wearing my own clothes. I only had my socks, jocks, and my ute and my tennis rackets in my ute. And that was it.
So talk us through the processing of that in the, I guess, immediately, and then the days, weeks, and months after that. Because how did you start to come to terms with it, and what was the thought process like for yourself and the family? Yeah,
so the very first, I remember going back into town. I stayed with a mate that night, and we went and brought socks and jocks and just some stuff to get through, some toothbrush and that type of thing.
Probably a couple beers as well, I would imagine, or something, just to...
I still remember to this day, we just made jokes about it a little bit, and she took a Snapchat of me, and I was eating tea at her house, and eating tea at 10 o'clock at night, mind you. But and her Snapchat said, just feeding the homeless. But
humour, it just gets you through the hardest situations.
It does, and that's just what I just kept doing. I just kept reflecting it straight back into humour and
feeding the homeless.
So literally one of the best coping mechanisms.
I think it is.
Yeah,
100%,
sure.
Because it did get me through to a degree.
That is a quality bit of banter. At a down time. Yeah, wow.
But it didn't really hit, it wasn't until probably 3 or 4 months after that it really hit home.
Sunk in.
Yeah,
reality.
100%. Yeah.
Is there...
Probably the things you thought of and oh shit, that's gone too. That would have happened heaps.
Yeah, like baby albums, passport. I actually had a trip booked to Europe. I pushed myself to book this trip with a few mates to make me do something that I knew that I couldn't do. So I booked this trip and house burnt down. So there goes my passport, and I had a month to get all that sorted, my birth certificate sorted. So I had to go down to Melbourne and sort all that shit out
Is there the whole... Yeah, I don't know. So obviously you've lost everything, but was the mindset ever, well, at least we're still alive, at least the family's okay? Did that help you at all, or I suppose?
Yeah, it did. And that's, at the end of the day, that's what's important. Yes, we lost, my great-grandpa's journals and, everything from the farm, all the, that type of stuff, but all the history and all this. But at the end of the day, no one was hurt. If we were in bed and that happened, who knows if we was going to be still here. And sometimes I think if I was there, could have I stopped it? But at the same time, you do have to find the positives in the negative, and I know I'm a huge, strong believer of that. And when the house did burn down, it was about 3 or 4 months after, and we all sat down as a family and we decided to rebuild. And grandma, grandpa, and dad, sat me down and they said, righto, we want you to be in charge of the rebuild. This is your future family farm home, and for generations to come, make it something special. Go crazy. Make it, a good foundation for generations. And straight away I was like, nah, no way I could walk into, tile shops and talk to builders and architects.
This anxiety was gripping you, wasn't it?
Oh, 100%.
But like, what was your thought? Like, I'm curious as like, what were your thoughts about what was going to happen? Like, what did you foresee things? Like, if you had to go to a tile shop, what freaked you out about that? Like, what was stopping you from going and doing that?
I don't actually 100% know. I guess it's like the human contact and actually like getting them to take me for real, I guess. And
so it was like talking to people?
Yeah, talking to people.
Probably a lot of fear about what you don't know as well, like the unknown stuff. Like who knows what might happen
And like if I ever did go into a clothing store and I was like with my grandma or someone, or even by myself, if I did push myself to do it, as soon as I walk in, I would look around the shop, pick out some people that I knew or something, or like make sure that I, walk to the men's side, not the female side in the shop, or like I'll take notes on everything. Or like in a supermarket, it's what worries me the most is my card not working at the checkout or holding up the person behind me when I'm going through the checkout. Like I don't want to be inconvenient to anyone else. I just want to please everyone else, I guess. But so I'd always have my card. I'd have a backup, like borrow my dad's card, and I'd always have cash in my wallet.
And a checkbook just in case.
Pretty much. Like I'd have backup there just in case it didn't work. And then, you put your card details in, like, shit, I got to remember the passcode now. And then that anxiety comes on and you're like, you fuck it up. So
Did you like have trouble sleeping and stuff? Like switching off? Because like it sounds like your brain was just always worried about the next thing, and you're like, "Fuck, what is gonna, What
so I actually went to ag college at Longadong, and if I had to go there on a Wednesday or something, I would be up all night and I would be worrying about it, like no tomorrow. And whenever I had Italian in primary school, I'd stay up all night, and I would I would make myself sick so that I didn't have to go to school the next day.
Fuck, that is, mate. This is like,
and there would be so many people going through that.
Not uncommon, mate.
Like fucking so many people. But I suppose the thing is, you're so anxious that there's no way you're going to go see anyone for help because you're fucking anxious about that.
Yeah, 100%.
Like you're fucking stuck between a rock and a hard place. Like
and I've never actually thought about that either. Like no way I didn't even want to talk to anyone about it because I just didn't feel comfortable.
Well, you probably didn't even
know what's going on.
Yeah, you don't know what's going on. You've got no idea what's happening to you.
I didn't even know what anxiety was until I did talk to someone.
So how'd you pick the tiles for the house then? Talk us through it.
Yeah, so at the time, my dad was actually dating the builder's sister. So that first conversation was over the dinner table with the builder and how it all worked and what I had to do and all this. And then I had to go to the architect was the next step. And he worked at the back of his house, and I remember sitting at the front of his house and shitting myself. I was like sweating like no tomorrow just to go back there. But always in my mind, I'm like, right, I'm not going to let my family down. I'm going to do this, and it's my time to shine. I need to do it. So, did that, and then I started, having to pick out tiles and curtains and stuff like that, and my builder would always check up on me and just be like, right, you need to do this week, sort this out, or you need to finalize this idea or whatever. And he really pushed me, and I'm really thankful for that now, because if my house didn't burn down or if that never happened, I don't think I would ever have got on top of my anxiety. And something so negative and rock bottom of, losing my house, like you cannot get any worse than that. But the positive out of that was I learned to control my anxiety. And it's like...
It's really cool.
And a silver lining.
Yeah, like...
You think your family knew that lumping that responsibility on you, they must have known. They must have known that this was, going to make you, right?
Yeah, well, maybe. I don't know. Like... Well, it did. So,
do you reckon they understood where you were at though with all your anxiety? Like, did they?
Yeah, did they know everything that was going on?
No.
They didn't.
No one knew anything. Grandma knew a little bit.
And you were just concealing it all, pretty much.
Yeah, and going to that doctor with Grandma that first time, I would go by myself after that because, I told the doctor everything, and then, it's like Yeah, I don't know.
Wow.
It's so
What a story. It's really cool. It's awesome. And lucky you had a good builder who talked you through the process.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And imagine if that was a shit. Fuck. Like imagine if the building process was a shit. Like turned out shit. I mean, fuck. Imagine the hole you would have ended up in then.
Did you working with the architect? Like how sort of did you enjoy that? Like, did you enjoy that designing process, or like did they?
Did so at the point? Yeah. So I actually ended up drawing my own design, how I wanted the house, because we got grampians in front of our house, so I wanted it to be, all facing that and all this other stuff. So I drew hundreds.
What are we talking, like floor plans on
just
a piece
floor plans.
of paper?
Yeah, just floor plans on a piece of paper. Nothing too extravagant.
Yeah.
And then end up going to the architect and be like, this is what I want. Just, do what you got to do. And he just, did all the measurements and stuff and changed my drawing completely because things didn't fit in where you think it fit in. But it turned out awesome. And I did enjoy that.
Yeah, cool. How long did the build take?
Probably 12 months all up.
Yeah, okay.
Or 9.
You must have felt
10 months. I don't
really bloody accomplished when you, like, that first day on the deck. You got a back deck, patio.
Sort of, yeah.
Well, that's our area.
Just like a veranda.
Yeah.
Veranda right around. But
must have felt good chilling out there the first time when it was all done and you've actually achieved it and accomplished it.
It was actually my first shower in that house. And I remember being under the shower and I was just like, this is cool.
Look at me. I'm showering on my own.
Yeah.
And I've built the bloody shower.
So did you, like, was there a point through that process where you're like, fuck, I got this? You know what I mean? Like you felt the change? Like was there a point, was there a moment, or was it just a progression through that build that you just got more confidence?
About probably 3/4 through, and I remember I was in the tile shop and I actually enjoyed going in there because everyone was awesome in there and they were excited about, what I picked out and they wanted to see how it ended up, and it actually ended up being fun to go into these shops because I actually, made a connection and we all got along and all that type of thing. But, it was pretty cool to feel confident towards the end.
That's awesome.
And I think that's all, well, from my perspective, my understanding of anxiety is all anyone needs, isn't it? It's just a bit of confidence. You just need to feel a bit of confidence that you can actually do it and you are a strong person, and you can actually achieve more than what you think you can, and those psychological barriers that have stopped you from walking into the supermarket and all that sort of stuff.
And you always think that people are watching you, but really everyone's in their own little world.
No one could give a shit.
No. Right, everyone is in their little fucking world. You're not wrong.
That's awesome. So, wow, congratulations, mate. That's really cool. Like, I think a lot of people will get a whole lot out of that story themselves because, we are inherently strong, more resilient than what we give ourselves credit for, I think, a lot of the time.
Yeah.
But the thing is, like with your story, for instance, there would be a lot of people in your situation and exactly what you went through sort of being like, well, fuck, my situation, like, I don't want to hamper anyone with what I'm going through because, like, it's not really that bad. Like, I can't go to the shopping centre, Like,
no, but it is. Yeah,
I know it is, but to you, it's like, well, I don't want to put anyone out. You know what I mean? Like, that was your thing. I don't, fuck, well, my thing's not that bad, but really it was gripping your everything you were doing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think, your story is pretty important for people out there to actually, check in where they're at and be like, well, fuck.
And like, now that I've got a control of it, I still have anxiety. Don't get me wrong. Like, it's normal to feel anxious about doing stuff.
For sure.
You're preaching.
Like, I've got a big talk tomorrow, and before I go on that stage, I'll be shitting bricks. Like,
well, mate, people are more scared to public speak than they are of dying. So, I mean, it's like the scariest thing you can do is talk to a group of people.
And I do have to give a lot of credit to the Naked Farm for continually pushing me out of my comfut zone. Because I've been put into these situations where I have to do things and, talk to sponsors and do talks and.
Well, you're the face of this thing. Yeah, you're the guy. So let's talk about that.
How did you go from the anxiety to getting your kit off?
Yeah, well, let's talk about like the Naked Farmer.
Right.
Like let's talk about its inception and
how it came about.
So I'll start right at the beginning where it all started. So me and a good mate of mine, Emma Cross, we thought it'd be a great idea to do a bit of a calendar, and every month of the calendar was me naked around the farm, and it was a bit of a joke for me mates. I was going to give it to them for Christmas.
Bit of a piss take.
Yeah. So sloppy rigs all around. But then, so we took 2 photos and didn't end up happening that year because harvest come along and whatever. And it was that photo of me during harvest. Emma popped out and, I was in the truck full of lentils and she took that shot. And then it wasn't until that following year when I was sitting on the tractor and I was actually planting those same lentil seeds back in the ground, and I actually posted that photo on my social media, and got a lot of attention. And I was like, why did that get so much attention? And it was because I was naked, of course. But I thought, you know what, I'm going to dedicate an Instagram to naked farmers. And my idea back then was to educate people on where their food and fibre comes from, because there's a huge disconnect there between the people that grow our food and our end consumers. And I just wanted people to appreciate what farmers actually do for us, just so we can, go to the supermarket and grab that milk and those veggies. Like, people don't actually understand what people go through. And then within the first month, we grew quite rapidly, and the photos got sent in, and it's sort of, I looked at the followers, and most of the followers weren't people from cities or towns. It was farmers themselves, and I wanted to use the platform for something positive. And that's when I decided, it takes guts to get your gear off, as it takes guts to talk about mental health, and that's something that I've been through, like I've just talked about, and I've lost an uncle to suicide when I was younger as well. So it's something that I'm extremely passionate about, and I feel absolutely honoured to be a part of this community that's been created. And 100% credit goes to each and every one of those followers and people that like the photos and comment and all that type of thing, because they are the naked farmers. I'm just putting it all together, and it's pretty amazing to share people's stories on their behalf and actually, get them out there and feel confident, telling their stories. And I think it's a really powerful thing to do.
Mate, it is, yeah. It's unreal.
So your everything that you, like what we were just talking about with the anxiety and everything growing up, like you had obviously drawn a distinct, relationship between mental health and what you were going through. Like you knew that what everything you'd been through was like your own version of, poor mental health, I suppose, or?
Yeah. And at the point of when it all started, I fully understood anxiety at this stage. I just finished building my house, so I was at that stage of on a big high from doing that, and I was ready to kick it in the nuts, basically, and
just wanted to keep the ball rolling.
Yeah.
So why do you think it? Like from my point of view, obviously, what you're saying about your post, being naked, it's like, oh, that's different. People like that, and is that, when we're talking vulnerability and people getting naked, I suppose, is that why it's really resonated with people so well? Because it's kind of something that people don't ordinarily do.
It's something that pushes your limits and something that makes you feel uncomfortable. But
and you got to be gutsy to do it.
Exactly. And that's what mental health is. Like it's really hard to deal with, but if we expose it and talk about it, it's something that we can work on and work to a positive outcome.
Mate, 100%, yeah. And I mean, you must have, well, like you're saying, like heaps of stories. Are there ones that stand out that have sort of been like, holy shit, like this is like a really powerful thing, like So the very first year, me and Emma, we went right around mainland Australia, and I think we caught up with about 40 farmers all up in 14 days. So like we went to, we did 17 female farmers and farmers' wives. And then, we went from WA to Northern Territory, Queensland, all that. So many amazing stories. And, that one I was talking about, Camille, earlier, that was incredible. Like actually getting the inside of anorexia and how that worked, and how she deals with it, and still to this day, how she, how her mind works with trying to deal with it. Just recently come back from Tassie, and that was incredible. And there's this one guy in particular, his name's Carl, and I think it was about 17 years ago, he was given a year to live because of his
I can't exactly remember what it's called, but he's a miracle. And his doctor tells him every time he sees him, he's like, "You're still alive. You're a bloody miracle." And it's 17 years later. And that's because he looks at life in a positive way. And I've never been so inspired by a person ever. I can't wait to get his story out. I'm actually publishing a book later on next year, and his story will be in there. And it's just incredible, absolutely incredible. And yeah, other stories are, postnatal depression from a lady in Tassie as well. The way that she talked about, that's something that I've never, no one in my family or has ever talked about or anything. I've never, heard much about it. And the way that she explained that was, it's incredible.
Eye-opening.
Yeah, it was really eye-opening. And yeah, it makes me even more passionate about it. And I just want to know more and help more. Stories everywhere we went. Everyone had their own story, and it was incredible.
Mate, everyone does, have their own story. And it's interesting, with the farming community and the rural community, and the three things that you just spoke about were nothing of what I would assume that most farmers would be, ringing in about, talking about they're struggling with drought or it's finances, someone with anxiety, someone with postnatal depression, and, someone else that's been given, a terminal ticket out of here. That's quite a different narrative as to what I was sort of
You're expecting everyone to be talking about the drought.
Yeah, and that, because that's just something that's obviously been gripping the rural community for a while now. Yep. But I mean, it's bloody credit to you that you're not just getting one thing, you're actually getting across so many different walks of life.
But I think that just goes to show that when the conversation currently is so heavily around the drought,
and
that's just one extra thing on top of what people are just dealing with in their day-to-day lives. Anyway,
definitely,
definitely. It's just one thing on top, and I suppose, being city, you don't really consider that. You think, oh, geez, it's just about the drought, but it's no way. Every single thing else, isn't it?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, 100%. I'm just, it's awesome that's quite a.
So how are you recording these stories? How do you go from not being going into a shopping centre supermarket to publishing a frigging book and speaking on stage? It's a crack of a story, mate. It's cool.
Yeah, it's nuts when you actually think about it.
How are you recording? Do you ever stop and think about it? Do you ever stop and reflect on where you've come, what you've been through?
And in a quick amount of time too. You said 3 years ago.
2 years ago. So 2 years and a few months or whatever. It was May 2017 or something.
Do you give yourself enough time to think about it?
I'm too busy to even stop. And that's actually something else I probably should talk about too, about running myself in the ground. But so it wasn't until 2 months ago, my grandma just had a knee reco, and she was house ridden because she couldn't leave. And I had this interview with ABC in my local town. I was, had to go in there, and I said, "Grandma, come with me for the morning and we'll go, do this interview." So she sat there and sat outside the studio and watched me speak and did my interview and walked out, and she goes, "Ben, bloody hell, how the hell did you just do that? How did you speak so good?" And she was blown away. And that's when I was like, oh yeah, a couple of years ago, I just couldn't do anything. I could not do that. If I had that in my brain that I was going to do a radio interview or something, I would be, I would put Wheat Bix in a bag and put it on the ground and pretend I was sick just so I didn't have to do it or something. I would make an excuse. But that's when it really sunk in. And that was only a couple of weeks. Or a month ago, 2 months ago. So
wow.
That's awesome. And I suppose, how, you as a bloke now, how do you look after your own mental health? What's your thing?
Yeah, so because of last year, because I've been so flat out just trying to do the Naked Farmer and
you're running a family farm.
Family farm as well, and I do a few other bits and pieces as well that on the side, but it's. Yeah, so I was trying to juggle everything, and I was running Naked Farmer on my own at this stage, and every, at least once a month, I would make myself that sick, dehydrated, ran down. I would end up in hospital on the drip for, for a couple of days, and then I'd be out of action for like a week.
Oh shit!
So I was getting nothing done because I was, work for
Working
2
yourself
weeks
to the
and
bone.
then, sick for 2 weeks. So it was just, it was terrible. But and that happened for the whole year. I wasn't learning from my mistakes. It just kept happening. And it wasn't until like my best mate, Mason, he sat me down.
Mason's sitting here in the studio, by
He's
the way.
in the
He's our
studio.
first guest,
Hey.
our first sit-in guest.
And
Jeez, he's nice and quiet over there, isn't he?
Yeah.
So he sat me down and he goes, Ben, you need to like think about this and don't run yourself down. Like if you're not running at 100%, you can't give 100%, and you need to look after yourself to help others. And,
Fuck, that's good advice.
and
Nailed it.
And that's when I was like, we made a pact that, this year, not getting sick.
Yeah.
And I haven't been sick once.
Mate, it's awesome, and that's a key thing that we speak about often. It's like, you've got to prioritize yourself,
100%.
and if you're not looking after yourself, everyone around you
Yep.
isn't going to get the best of you. So,
So you
Mason nailed that.
You cruise around with Mason. I met you and yourself and Mason at the Gympie Muster. I mean,
Yep.
I know he's in the room so he can hear us, but must be good having a support network.
It is.
like
and
that, right?
100%. And that's something that's really important, is having that support people around you and a good network. And that's why, I tag him along with everything. He does all the filming and, puts all the filming and that videos together and that for the socials. And
you're just the pretty face of it all.
yeah, pretty much. But so he keeps me intact, make sure I'm eating well and drinking well and all that if I forget, because I always forget to drink water. But so
Lucky we're only on the waters in the studio today. Beautiful.
thanks, quote spec.
Yeah.
Thanks to Mace that keeps me on track and gets me to where I need to be and all that type of thing, like today.
Mate, that's great. That's great.
awesome.
And I suppose, did you? You're not like, no one's ever over their anxiety or anything like that. But what were there any other steps that you've taken recently? Like, because I'm sure you've learned a shitload.
Oh,
Because you're the sort of the same with us. Like, we're not mental health professionals, but we've all got a common narrative of trying to change the face of this shit and get people talking.
Yeah.
And I can speak for Dan and I. Like, we've learned like so much in the last 18 months, 2 years, around mental health. Like, what are some of the things that you've learned and sort of doing with yourself, I suppose?
Yeah. So with me, my biggest thing is eating well. If I eat good food and not crap all the time, if I feel good, I'm awesome.
Yeah.
That's probably my biggest thing. My next thing would be just like a little bit of exercise each morning, like even if it's 100 skips with a skipping rope.
Yes.
Like as long as I
Something
get
to
out of
get the
bed,
endorphins
do that.
going.
Yeah. Or scull a glass of water in the morning.
Yeah.
Like that's something so simple like that just gets me going in the morning.
But also, by the sounds of it, it sounds like you're super self-aware as well now.
Oh, yeah. I have signs now that, like, this is stupid to actually happen today, but, like, my eye starts to hurt a little bit and I actually start getting a bloodshot eye and I know that I'm starting to get run down a little bit.
Yeah, right.
And
Everyone's got their triggers, don't they? Yeah.
Yeah, and I was on the plane and I said to Mason, I'm like, shit, I'm starting to get, like, my eyes starting to hurt. And he looked at it and he goes, yeah, you're getting bloodshot eye. So sculled some water and now I'm good. But, and that's a good thing with sitting on a plane. You can sort of just sit and reflect and take time out. And that's something else that's really, really important, is having that time to relax. And like whenever I go check my sheep, I put my phone on airplane mode and just ignore social media and go check my sheep and do what I got to do down there. And then once I leave those gates, turn it back on. And that's a good way for me to
Good
chill
time out.
I think that's one of the most important things because, I mean, maybe for yours, maybe it's anxiety, but for everyone else, it's different. But it's super important to recognise those triggers or those situations and really take time out for yourself and just slow down, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And another thing I do is not sit on my phone in bed and go through social media and
switch it off.
Switch
off.
Yeah.
And
actually have what I like. I watch a little bit of Netflix and then
everyone dabbles with that.
What are you watching at the moment?
I started watching Raising Dion.
All right.
Which is like this little magical kid and
yeah, right.
it's pretty good.
Nice. So tell us what's coming up, because you're doing speaking gigs.
Yep.
Firstly, all this speaking stuff, incredible. Like, because that is, as Ed said,
such a credit to you.
As Ed said, like that is like people's biggest fear in life is public speaking.
It literally is.
I totally relate with that. And I remember, doing my first little speaking gig, and it was actually at my old school, and I was shitting bricks up there, and I was shaking the whole time I was talking. But I was talking about the naked farmer, and I was just talking about, something that I do every day. So the next one come along, and still nervous, but, did all right. And then I just got better and better. And now I'm at the stage now that, I'm doing a big thing in Brisbane tomorrow, which is the International Youth Conference. And I've got a full presentation, and, I'll be up on stage for half an hour. Like, if I got told that I had to speak for half an hour, I would, 5 minutes.
How am I going to fill that in?
Yeah, what can I do? Can I play a video for 15 minutes?
How does this look? Because so are you doing a PowerPoint?
So I'm doing there's a 2-minute quick video to introduce me, and then I'll be giving the rundown of the naked farmer. I'll be saying my story, and then I've got just a few photos on the PowerPoint, which is from the Tassie tour. So I'll just be going through the people that I caught up with and their stories, and some visuals of naked farmers and what it's all about.
Epic, mate. Epic.
Awesome, mate.
Sorry.
No, you're right.
What's next, or what's down the line? Where do you want to take it? What do you want to do with it?
So at this point, we're just just finished our Tassie tour. We're getting our calendars out for 2020, which is all to raise money for the Rural Flying Doctor Service, Rural Mental Health. So they're rolling out at the moment, and got our undies coming in the next couple of months as well, just before Chrissy. So that's something super exciting.
That's confusing, isn't the idea that you don't want people to be wearing anything?
It is, but
you've got to wear something.
Yeah, you also got to be safe around the farm.
Of course. Safety first, good call.
And some people don't like to get fully nude either, so it's and you can chill. You don't have to wear them; you can just chuck them up in there.
Give them to someone.
Be creative.
Yeah, for sure. Wear them as a wrestling mask.
The first batch of undies, I actually got a photo, and it was around a Christmas table, and everyone in the family was wearing the naked farmer undies on their head.
Oh, really?
So,
there you go. Wrestlers.
Awesome.
Perfect.
Exactly.
Love it.
And the book. What about the book?
Yeah, so that'll be hopefully later on next year. But next year's going to be my biggest tour yet. In August for the whole month, I'm teaming up with Jodie Morton from Green Gold and Blues on Instagram. We're doing a horseback tour through New South Wales and Queensland. So never ridden a horse. So I actually started.
You'll know how to by the end of it.
Here I am thinking everyone I'm from Sydney. Here I'm thinking everyone who lives on a property just gets around on a horse. Everywhere.
It's not McLeod's daughters all the time.
McLeod, exactly right. Yeah,
everyone wears a brand new set of RMs every day.
It's like in Sydney, everyone wears a fedora. No, they don't, but common misconception.
Miss what?
Misconception.
Benny, it's been bloody awesome. I mean, it's a really quality story. I mean, credit to you for what you're doing. Journey on where you've been through and where you are now. I mean, it's I know our listeners are going to get a lot out of that because there'll be a lot of people out there that can relate either with themselves or someone around them. So, awesome chat, mate.
Are we going to see a bit of are you going to miss this? Are we going to see a bit of
taken? Yeah.
Yeah, you are, right? Yeah. I was thinking, no farmer wants a wife, none of that.
I've already been approached.
Have you?
Yeah.
Have you?
Yeah, a couple of times.
Yeah, right.
That would have been perfect.
They want you.
Yeah, they did. But no.
Yeah, right.
Can't have me.
Gone.
Taken.
Oh, love it.
Nice, mate. Awesome. Thanks so much for coming in, mate. And
no worries.
Yeah,
we'll have to get a photo. We'll have to go out and somehow get.
We've got one. We've got one in the bathtub.
Yeah, but it's not farmer related.
Yeah, but it's
we'll get something.
Yeah, righto. Can't wait to get naked with you.
Love you, buddy.
Righto. Let's get our kid off in here for this photo, then, shall we?
Yeah. Righto. Thanks again, Ben. Really appreciate it,
no
mate.
worries.
And
thank you.
Look forward to seeing you again soon.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Thanks.
mate.
Thanks, mate.
Good on you.